There is a very simple function of the paintbrush tool, or any of the tools for that matter, that utilize a brush tip, that is called fade. Now, the use of fade can have a lot of different functions, but here in the painting, we'll look at a couple of places where we see such a fading brush. Right here, we see it at some of the little highlights right here on this lamppost, and also we see them right here on one of the highlights on the edge of this cab, right there. We can see where it's really bright and then it's just slowly fading off into nothing. Now, it's a real simple function of that tool. So let's go in here and see how that works. Just so we can use them as highlights, I'm going to go in here and just invert my background. And I'm going to create a couple of little effects here. I'm going to take my brush, and it's set to a size 36, and it just does this right now. So when I go into my brush engine, the function is under transfer. And what you fade out is either the opacity or the flow. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this guy off completely, the flow, and I'm going to say the opacity. I'm going to have it set to fade. There it is. And you can see a little preview of what's happening down below. Now, I'm getting a little bit of a bumpiness, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close up the spacing so I won't get that much of a bumpiness. Now, the fade is set on number of steps. So 25 is going to fade when it gets to 25 different little brush tips being applied. So there you can see where it's going from the solid fading out to nothing. So I can go in there and increase that. Let's say we do it to 95. So now I'm going to get a longer streak. This is very good for little things like, say, a meteorite or little light streaks like you saw before. If you want to have control over this, you might want to go in there and create a path. So if I want it to be a really nice arc, I might want to create a nice little path like so. Right? So now when I take the brush and I go to the path and say stroke that, you see that it's going to follow that nice little arc. Now let's just say you want to add a little highlight to the edge of a disc or something like that. Let's create a little disc, just so you can get the idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just create this little shape. So we'll get an ellipse tool and we'll say fill it with a solid color here. I'm going to create a layer and I'm going to create a little disc here. It's a nice filled disc and it's a nice little golden disc like that. Okay, so I want to give this a little edge. And that's where the light is going to be picking it up. So I'm going to duplicate this. And the one in back here, I'm going to kind of lift up a little bit, like this. There we go. And then I'm going to just select a little area right in between the two of them, right through there. And I'm going to fill that with a color, same color. And then it's just duplicated to close it off on that side, get it perfect. There. So now we have this disc. Now to make it look like it's three-dimensional, I'm going to take that one in back. I'm going to burn the edges of it. Let's go in here and say, let's get the highlights, and we're just going to kind of darken that edge right through there. And we're going to darken this edge right in here. So it has a little three-dimensional look to it. And then we're going to kind of lighten up the center. We're going to go in here and just lighten this up. And let's set this up to highlights. And we're just going to lighten up right in the middle there. Let's set up the shadows. Get it as light as we can in there. There we go. It's going to require a lot of hits right there. So we're just picking up a little highlight right in the center there. Now this edge right here that's facing us is going to need a nice little highlight right there. But it's got to follow that edge. And it's got to fade that way and that way. Now when you stroke a path, it strokes it in the direction in which it was created. So what we're going to do is we're going to get in close here. And I'm going to create a path right from the center, right here. I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to hold down my shift key to constrain it. And I'm going to come over to this edge here and click and drag. And I want it to follow that edge. So I'm just going to adjust this till it's just following that edge like that. Now, it's going in that direction. I'm now going to create a totally separate path. Let's disconnect that path right there. That path is no longer selected. And I'm going to get kind of close to it, but not on it, because then it's going to automatically connect it. Right off to the side, click and drag this way. Hold down my shift key and go down to here and click and drag. And then I'm going to bring it over so it's right on top of the other. There is still two distinct paths, but one is going this way and one is going that way. So now, I don't want either one of them selected, but I want to have those paths there. So now I'm going to use this white right there. I'm going to get my paintbrush here and let's make the size much smaller. So we have just about the size we want, which is going to give us that. And there's the fade right now that's currently set from before. I'm going to give that a much larger fade. So we'll set this up to say 120. So let's test that and see how far it's going to go. Well, we can go even further. Let's go to 155. That's going to be a nice size right there. So I have the brush selected And I'm going to create a new layer for that little highlight on top of all of them. And we'll even call it highlight. And then I'm going to take my brush, take that path, and stroke it. And there you see that we have this highlight right in the center going off in this direction and off in that direction. And if you want, you can go in there and increase the size of it, bring down the opacity a little bit to about 40%, and just give a little hit right there in the center just to add that extra little sparkle right there that makes it look a little more realistic. And there we see that we have this nice little sheen on the edge of that disc to add that three-dimensional look to it.